In this episode, we're going to cover the 5 key areas you have to have absolutely dialed to nail 10K months consistently. So the very first one is to have one clear target market. I feel like I know what it's like to be a coach and hear someone tell you you need to have a clear niche or an avatar. I think a lot of the time, I know I used to roll my eyes when mentors and guides used to tell me, we're going to do an avatar analysis. But genuinely, the reason so many people tell you it over and over and over is because it's so fucking important. So we need to have one target market just absolutely dialed in. You need to know who you're speaking to. The problem with not having that done is that you end up by trying to speak the opposite of having a niche is trying to speak to everyone. And if we're trying to speak to everyone, inherently you speak to no one. No one's that excited. So what we need to do is just speaking to one group of people and say the right few words in at the right ear. Now, I realize this is going to be a bit complex in terms of how can I teach you to, very quickly teach you to have one clear target market. Realistically, what I want you to do is think about the types of people that you would like to work with, the type of people that you enjoy working with, and just brainstorm on paper. Now, if you are really struggling for your target market, the best option, bar none, in my opinion, is to go back to who you were 5 years ago and make that your target market. Why? Because you understand implicitly and inherently every problem that they have. You just understand what they're going through, and you can write that content. So what I'd do is I'd brainstorm for 5 minutes exactly who it is that you potentially could help and enjoy working with. And then at that point, you need to ask 3 questions. Pick your top 3, and then let's ask 3 questions. Question number 1 is, do you like them? I know that seems like an obvious one, but I know so many coaches that kind of fell into their niche. They fell into helping the people that they ended up PTing. And when you're a PT in the gym floor, you just take who comes your way in the early days of your career. So the first question is, do you like them? Yes or no? The second question is, can you help them? So there are lots of groups of people that I really like, but I'm not qualified to help. And actually, in my career as a coach, how that played out was actually women. It's like I coached women in the gym, and then when I moved to work online, I started the level of coaching started to ascend quite a lot towards more complex type of coaching. But then I found with the female health, I just didn't understand it because, I was going to say funnily enough, but it's 2025. I've never been a woman. Because of that, I didn't understand the physiological stuff that was going on for them, and I would have to have gone and researched it. And frankly, I didn't enjoy it. So, do you like them? Well, yes, but I don't like working with them that much. As a coach, that was fine. Can I help them? At a low level, yes, but not at the level that is required to command a high price point. So no. So my option was continue working with women and go and study a lot more, or stop and just double down on men. So that's what I did. And the third question, we've got do you like them, can you help them as our first 2. The third of the 3 questions is, will they pay? So another example from my career, early doors, one of the first times I did this exercise, I worked in the rugby club that I used to play at, great place, and I figured, I spotted this market, this potential gap, where there was the 18 to 25-year-old blokes playing rugby that were just Roy Keane for training, they loved it, and in reality, guys that age are testosterone factories. So I thought, there's something in this. I started pursuing them and then realized that the answer to will they pay was no, because at that age, every penny of their money was going on booze. So in reality, that market was also a no. What you're looking for, if you kind of take your top 3 and then you go across that, do you like them? Can you help them? Will they pay? You're looking for one with 3 ticks. Again, just to recap this section, if you are in any way struggling, I would suggest you just go after you from 5 years ago and start making content. Now, just one more point on that before we move into the second area of the 5, is a lot of the stuff that the person you were 5 years ago requires, the stuff that is so obvious to you, you've forgotten all about it. So, for example, one of the most clear examples I use is if you are on an incline dumbbell bench press and the bum pad of the bench is flat, the likelihood is you've seen someone trying to dumbbell incline press with a flat bum pad and their big toes are going to come through the front of their fucking trainers because they're trying to force themselves back onto the bench. You and I both know that if you lift the bum pad up 90 degrees to the back pad, You're now going to be able to sit into the bench, and obviously you can only create upward force with the same or equal amount that you can create downward force. You know that you need to have the bump pad like that. 5 years ago, I'd bet that a lot of you guys didn't. I certainly didn't when I first started. Or putting a biscuit plate underneath the end of a barbell to unload the plates. That stuff feels really, really obvious to you, but it's the stuff that's not obvious to you 5 years ago. And the only roadblock to you making that content is your fear of judgment from other coaches. You don't want to put that stuff out because they're like, well, everyone knows that. Well, yeah, if you're a coach, you probably know that. But the people that you're working with probably aren't coaches, so they don't know that. So I think just as a final kind of cap out there is be very careful that you're not allowing the judgment of other coaches to prevent you speaking to the problems that your market have. So our first one was one target market. Our second area that you will need absolutely fucking dialed is to have one clear product. Ultimately here, simple scales and complex fails. One core offer or one core product, depending on whichever language you'd like to use, is the fastest, simplest, and in all honesty, easiest route to hitting consistent 10K months. I see a lot of the time where coaches will start to make maybe £3,000-4,000 a month, and then they come to me. I actually had this chat with a client this week. A specific client came to me and she said, I'm thinking about running a group program. In my opinion, there are multiple ways to skin this cat, of course, but in my opinion, just riding one product until you get to 10 grand and then considering any further diversification is the answer. So I said to that client in question, I was like, no, park the group thing just now. There is shitloads more capacity for you in one-to-one. And I genuinely believe that not only is it easier for you, it's easier for the prospect to buy. Because I think one thing we need to understand is, whilst there are trainings like this for you to be taught and therefore to learn how to sell, there are no trainings for people to be taught and therefore to learn how to buy. So when the prospect gets to the point of being presented the price in whatever your sales discussion looks like, if you're like, okay, Chaz, here's what I've got. I've got one-to-one coaching, I've got premium one-to-one coaching, I've got group coaching, and I have remote coaching. And they're like, well, fucking hell. Okay, and then you tell them the price for all four of those, and then you tell them the upfront price for all four of those. So there's now 8 price points. There are 4 products with a split pay and upfront. What you've done is you presented to that prospect what I would call a matrix decision. So a matrix decision, at least in my understanding in this case here, would be, I have lots of incoming factors with which to make the decision. There are multiple answers to this question. What we want is to present them a binary decision. Yes or no. That's the fastest way to make a sale, in my opinion. And by having one-to-one coaching as your clear product, in my opinion, you will have the greatest luck getting to 10K and staying there, which is very, very important. Equally well, if you have that one product and you can master the craft of coaching people one-to-one, you will also find that you get much, much better results. With those much, much better results, you're able to command a much higher price point. If you're able to command a much higher price point, it's going to take fewer clients to get you to consistent 10Ks. So that's very, very important too. So far we've got one clear target market. And then number 2, we have one clear product. Number 3 is you have one conversion tool. So you can sell your coaching 1,000 different ways. Like, there are no shortage of trainings and educators on the internet telling you how different ways, how there are different ways that you can sell. You can sell on a call, you can sell on Zoom, you can sell on Google Docs, you can sell as a landing page, you can sell as a DM, like you name it, you can sell all these different ways. Ultimately, the rule here is to pick one and master it. Hopping between them is like hopping between training plans. And it's one of the kind of most cliched pieces of coaching advice that we dish out. It's still true though. It's probably why it's considered a cliche is, if you're hopping between training plans as a trainee in the gym, you're probably not going to see any results because you never really get the juice from any individual one. The same thing will go with selling. We teach multiple different ways: phone calls, DMs, landing pages, Zoom, and the Optimized Coach, but we encourage each one of our coaches to pick the one that best suits, and we actually help them find the one that best suits for them, and then ride that one into the sunset. That's the trick, is just sticking with the one thing. So if I had to pick one for you in order to get you to £10,000 a month consistently, I'll tell you what I would do. I would pick Zoom calls 10 days out of 10. Why? Well, not a number of reasons. The first of many reasons is that in reality, seeing someone's face, eyes, non-verbals is hugely beneficial to both of you in what can otherwise often be quite a difficult conversation, quite awkward conversation for everyone involved. Zoom also allows you to present stuff. So I like to bring up my iPad on our calls whenever we have a new coach interested in joining the Optimize coach. I bring up the iPad and we draw out a plan and we make a plan. We identify why they're here, what they're struggling with, where they would like to be, where they think they need help. And then from there, we kind of map out what at least the first 3 months look like to make sure that they understand exactly how the mechanics of the Optimize coach works. Now, when you're doing that, see that's on an iPad on the screen. We can do another episode on exactly how you can do all that. When you're bringing all that up, you can have social proof worked into those slides. So subconsciously, they are being fed case studies and social proof that says this person is who they say they are and can do what they say they can do, which is very, very important. Whereas I feel like on phone calls, it's very easy for them to be absent-minded, doing something else, walking the dog, driving the car. On a Zoom call, if someone isn't paying attention, it's very obvious and you can call them out on it. So I would always go with Zoom if I had the choice. But the ultimate rule here is that you pick one and you just become a master of it. Understand that in all the data that we have for all the coaches that we've ever worked with, Zoom has the highest conversion rate, bar none. Bar none, if you get them on a Zoom call. Now, I'm going to add a wee bonus tip on this one, the one conversion tool, is if we're going with Zoom calls, ultimately, one of the most important things that you need to understand is that the conversion rate will be higher only if they're paying attention. So if you see someone doing something else, they're on their phone, they answer, and rather than being on a laptop, they're holding their phone and they're walking about, they've got their headphones on, immediately call it and rebook the call for another time. Because if you're running a Zoom call with someone who is out in the street, walking to the gym, walking to work, taking the kids to school, they're not giving you their full attention and it's not going to benefit you. You're definitely not going to be able to close a call because they're not going to be able to make a decision at the end of it because they weren't listening to the majority of what you said. So one conversion tool is very, very important. The fourth of the 5 ones is one traffic source. I think this is probably one of the bigger ones, if I'm honest. The coaches who scale the fastest and who will scale the fastest in 2025 are the coaches who pick one platform and just fucking dominate. Now, there's some caveats to this, but let's just play it out. I would say pick one platform, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, just stick to one and one alone for now. And for now will be explained in point 5. I think a lot of coaches will come to me and say, I want to, hey Matt, maybe a client comes to me and says, Matt, I'm thinking about starting a post on YouTube or Spotify podcast. What do you think? Okay, sounds like a good idea. How consistent are you being on your current platform? What's your current platform? Oh, my current platform is Instagram. And I'm maybe, I'm not that consistent if I'm honest. I maybe post like twice a week. How many do you aim for? Well, I aim for 7 a week, but on average, I think I only post twice. Right, well, probably consistency is the baseline problem, not the pond which you're fishing in. So if all the different platforms are ponds, the problem isn't you're fishing in the wrong pond, probably. The problem is that you're just not being fucking consistent enough. And in my opinion, and in the experience that I have working with all the coaches that we've worked with, casting your rods into another pond isn't going to fix the consistency problem. Just shifting pond doesn't change the baseline problem, which is you're inconsistent with the creation of content in the first place. Now, slight bend of this rule is that right now, I'm talking to you, and I'm either coming in your eyes on YouTube or I'm coming in your ears on Spotify or your chosen platform of choice. Now, that's long form, and that is there's Spotify and there's YouTube. There are 2 platforms. It's also going to be chopped up by Chaz in post, and largely some of this will be chucked onto Instagram as shorts. We only entertained the process of introducing further additional platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple playlists, when we had mastered, and here's some stats, actually to make this real. When we check the Instagram account that you likely follow me on, it's at Matt_Optimize. I'd had that account for 8 years. And in that 8 years, I had posted on average more than once a day for the entire fucking time. So we had evidence that I was consistent in one pond, and therefore we had earned the right to shift into another. I think that's very, very important. So one traffic source is going to be crucial. It also allows you to master the link in your bio, master the DM structure, understand the various nuances of that platform and how to dominate there. Because when you do that, the rules are different in YouTube and Spotify and Facebook and in Instagram. The kind of game is roughly the same, but the nuanced rules are different. And because of that, there's a lot to carry in your head. If you know when a prospect DMs you, there's a ManyChat flow that links them and it takes them through the basic chat, blah, 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 blah. That works on Instagram. It probably doesn't work on YouTube, and therefore you've got to come up with all these different solutions, and you're creating work for yourself that is unnecessary. So the fourth one is one traffic source. The fifth and final one is 1 year, which is why I said we'll come back to how long you should master one piece of one traffic source for. 1 year is how long, and I think 1 year should do all of the above once. So if we go over the previous four, just before we go into this one target market, one clear product, one conversion tool, one traffic source, and do so for 1 year. This one for me is like the secret cheat code to scaling. So if you stick to the first 4 steps that we just mentioned for 365 days without chopping and changing, you will watch your turnover skyrocket. The difference is it's pretty straightforward to do the first 4. It's pretty fucking hard to do the 5th one. To stick to something for a year and continually invest into that without having any evidence that it's either working or not, and just continuing to reinvent and reinvest into that platform, into that way of selling, into that target market. It's this that effectively is the rocket fuel on the rest. Because if you aren't consistent, let's say you spend January working with overweight mums and you're going to post on Facebook, and then you realize in February it's like, no, I'm not getting much traction. Well, before we go any further, you're not getting much traction because it's been 4 weeks. Like, be patient. Like, aggressive patience is one of the core tenets of the Optimized Coach. So you chop and change. So you decide that that's not working and you shift over to Facebook. You stay on Facebook and you shift from overweight mums to just anyone who's considering to be mum and mums. So we've now got pre and postnatal. And you give that another 4 weeks, and then that doesn't really come to anything. Again, because you've given it 4 weeks, you then think, fuck this. Maybe they're on TikTok. So you shift over to TikTok and you start posting, but you've never posted on TikTok before, so you now have absolutely zero authority there. So you're now building up a brand new audience, and then lo and behold, what happens 4 weeks later? There is no traction. And when there is no traction, you change again and you decide, you know what, maybe it's not TikTok that's the problem. Maybe it's because I'm doing phone calls, sales calls. Maybe I need to do DM sales. So you change your whole sales structure, but again, you don't know what you're doing, so you're starting from zero again. And every single, every single time you go back to a fresh change, you go back to square one on the proverbial board game of scaling to 10K. If you can just pick, I want you to get a pen and paper, and I'll run over them one more time in totality, and then you can write them down, and I want you to pick your ones. One target market, that's your first thing you need to write down. The second thing you need to write down is one clear product. The third thing that you need to write down is one conversion tool. The fourth thing that you need to write down is one traffic source. And the fifth thing that you need to write down is 1 year. That one doesn't need any further notes. It is from today, for 365 days, I will stick to the previous 4. If you do that, you are on for an absolute recipe for success. If you don't, and you continue to do what's currently basically your current behaviors are perfect for your current results. So if you're not at consistent 10K months, and you can honestly tell me you're not doing any or all of these 5 things, I think you just found your answer. Done.
Oh yeah. Epic.